Welcome back to Magical Academic Note Taking. We are in 3C, so we are talking about the third component of the academic scaffolding that makes up the Rome Research setup. So hopefully you're ready for today. Let's talk about our lesson goals. So our lesson goals for today is to have the basic framework and understanding of how outlining is managed within Rome. We will be working on outlining throughout the course. It comes as a part of every single one of the four main sessions. So this is really just an introduction and to make sure that you have the core of what we will be working on set up already within your Rome graph. So let's talk about the outlining framework. The outline has four main components. The outline is the key piece of your academic scaffolding because the outline is what holds all of your thinking and writing together. And it's an initially loose but ever tightening framework. So as you continue to work on your four sessions, you will continue to tighten the framework of the outline from the loose ideas right through to the outline within which you will actually write your content. Outlining is not a one time thing. Building, maintaining, revising your outline happens constantly. And again, in each one of the four sessions. So let's talk about the first component of outlining. The first component of outlining is topics. This is the loosest component. And this is actually where probably most of you will start. You can view the four components below as stepping stones for your ideas. The further your idea climbs from the topics section to the outline and focus section, the closer it is to being included in your final result. And topics is obviously the first step. And it's okay if you're only here. In fact, if you are working on a PhD, you should start right here. Because if you go any higher, you'll find yourself falling backwards anyway, as things change so rapidly as you do your literature review and do your reading and do your exploration within the first year of your PhD. So, in order to teach by example, I'm going to use a very small section of my critical thesis to illustrate the concepts that we'll be learning. And you'll be able to see the way that my thesis develops from topic upwards. And you can see that I add these to my topics page simply as tags to collection pages. So let's just hop into topics right now. And I'm just going to open it in the sidebar. And you will see that what I've done is I have simply added a bunch of hashtags that will collect different kinds of pages. So you'll see that they're really just tags and they collect other pages with content together. So if you go back to our illustration of how we're going to organize, it means that the pages that you entered here are meant exclusively just to collect other content. There'll be no content on these hashtags. They'll just be linked references underneath those hashtags. This is how you're going to start to collect together all of the different things that will influence your ideas. So they are gatherers. These pages are gatherers. And later on in the course, during the synthesizing process, we will have a chance to further examine these gatherer functions. For now, before we get any further into the course, I would like you to add these top level pages in your own graph. So the topics, the Q notes, the Z notes, and the outline and focus statement section. And then after you do that, you can go ahead and start brainstorming some of the topics that you might want to have in your desired end result and go ahead and add those to your topic page. So let's just take a look at how these look in the sidebar. Just add these into your personal graph. Add a topics page, add a Q notes page, add a Z notes page, and add a page for outlines and focus. And we're going to review those right now. So Q notes. Let's close topics. You understand topics. Topics are really just general hashtags, because you can begin your paper or dissertation with a general idea of what you would like to write about, but you don't yet have enough information to actually write a complete outline within which you will start writing. So this is the space where you just gather together all of your ideas so that you don't lose them. And then when we close this and we move on to Q notes, actually we'll be studying these in detail over the course of the next few lessons. And as we study the Smart Notes process, it's going to become very clear to you what these Q notes are about and where they fit within the outlining process. But if I were to try to go into depth right now without giving you further background, you'd be pretty confused. So all you need to do today is add this Q notes page into your sidebar. The same with the Z notes or Z notes, depending on where you're from. We will study these in detail, in intense detail, over the course of the next few lessons. So just get that page in there so that is available to you. Let's talk about outline and focus statements. This section is where eventually, I'm going to make that a page. This section is where eventually you will gather all of your academic outputs from Rome research. And while we are working on these outputs, we will always call them outlines. So it doesn't matter to what extent your output is finished. It could even be in the draft process and be in the revision cycle, and it will still be called an outline. Because the most important thing to remember throughout this course is that an outline is not a fixed thing. It is a tool that is meant to be fluid and flexible that will provide you with guidance and structure as you travel the journey through the 4 sessions that we are going to outline. It's in outlining that the magic will happen. Your first outline is the beginning of your ongoing conversation with Rome. Remember, we talked about how most note taking systems are pretty dumb. They take your information, but they don't do anything with it. What we are learning here is how to teach Rome to talk back. And in order for Rome to do that, we need an outline. So the outline is where you start putting ideas, thoughts, and pieces of thesis level writing together immediately so that you actually are beginning to write before you sit down to actually write. So this can be as messy as you like because we are going to be refining it constantly. Don't get hung up on the rules of how this outline should look. It should look exactly how you need it to look to make progress. And in future lessons, you'll see how we start with the topics, move to the questions, refine them into Z notes, and then make those Z notes section, chapter, and paragraph headings in a final document. If you already have an outline, great. Don't hesitate to plug it in and don't feel like you have to go backwards. Just plug it right in. And again, we will refine as you go. If you don't have an outline, that's great too. You just play around with pulling some topics into an outline and writing on a topic, or just wait until you feel like you have enough to write with. That is a personal preference that you will learn how to apply as we proceed through this process. It will all become clearer as we move forward. So remember, even after you have an outline filled with chapters and sections, it will still continue to change. And you need to make sure that you're okay with that. That is okay. So let's talk about the pieces of this outline and focus statement. So let's head on over to the outline and focus statements page. I'm going to open it in the sidebar so that we can look at it all together. Okay. As you will see, I've put a description at the top. The outline is the writing page. This is the page that will eventually be exported as an output from Rome Research. This is a collection of outlines on this page. An outline is built from topics, Q notes, and Z notes. Okay, so what you will see underneath this line here is you will see that we have a bullet that says outputs. This is where you are going to put a link, a page link, to all of your final outlines. If you are only worried at this point about producing a single output, which is a thesis, a dissertation, or something else that you're working on, then that's all that needs to go on this page. There's no requirement for you to have a huge list of page links on this page. However, if you are an academic who is working constantly and putting out different kinds of outputs like book chapters and academic journal articles and things like that. This is a great place for you to collect all of your work together. I've given a little suggestion of how you should use the nomenclature to title your actual outline pages so that they are easy to find. So I would use the title of the output, the date that you started, the date you completed, and the status, all on this line, with each of these being their own individual page. Because what that means is you'll be able to quickly visit the title to see the actual outline. You'll be able to go to the date started and see what else was happening on that day. If there was a date completed, you'd be able to do the same thing, click on that. And then also if you'd like to include a status so that you know what you are working on. So I could actually call this outline active. And then that way I would immediately see on the page when I clicked on it that I had these outputs that I was continuing to work on. So, so on this page, you actually list all of the current outputs you're working on. And then what you do with them when they're complete is certainly up to you. I have all of my completed products because most of my outputs are products on a separate single page in my personal graph, but you can choose to organize them as you wish. However, right now we are very far from you needing to make any decisions on that. So just keep it in your mind. Next, we're going to look at an individual output page. So when you click on the sample thesis, we're going to put this into the main page. You will see that this is the individual output. So you will create a smart block that will run for you the header that you want to have on every one of your outputs. This is a suggestion, and this smart block will be included as a header smart block in the scaffolding tools hub. However, you can change this to whatever you need it to be. So I'm thinking you probably want to know a description of what it is, the date you started it, the date you completed it, the current status, and then a link to the final product, if there is a final product, right? So each one of these individual outputs has its own page. You could choose to use very specific nomenclature or naming system if you have a lot of outputs. That's up to you. I have a system in my own personal database where I preface all of my outputs with a specific code that helps me to quickly identify them. So, for example, for me, if this were a product that is something within a sold product, it starts with a dollar sign and then the actual number of the product and usually a version. Okay. If it is content that I'm going to be giving away, then I usually preface it with an at sign and then again the version, the number of the product and then a version. You might choose to say, okay, this is a journal article, so you preface everything with journals. Even if you write frequently for one specific journal, you might want to preface it with a journal article and the name of the journal. These are just some ideas. If it is your thesis, then you could just put a big thesis in the beginning. So just try and think if you do put multiple outputs through your Roam system, is there some kind of nomenclature you want to use in the page title to make it easier for you to find? The next thing I want to talk about is versioning. In early Rome days, you had to create a new page for each version and drag between the pages. And although that works fine, and please continue to use that method if it works for you, there is versioning capabilities now in Rome. When we get to the create stage, I'm going to go through both of these choices so that you can make the decision which one works within your process. I just wanted to show you what it looked like now so that you can have an idea and be familiar with it before we get to the create stage. So this is versioning. You can see that on the left-hand side, there is a bullet with a number inside. That shows us that we have 3 versions. If you click on the bullet, it opens up the ability to access all 3 versions. So if you click on 1, you're looking at version 1. Click on 2, you're looking at version 2. Click on 3, you are looking at version 3. One of the things I want to go back to again is nomenclature. It's very important that you have some sort of fixed naming system for your versioning within Rome so that you never actually start to confuse versions. That's one of the advantages of Rome. Instead of having multiple Word documents floating around and multiple printed versions of your thesis or your paper floating around, in Rome, you can keep it very tight and neat in a single version. So with your nomenclature, I would think about a version number, but I would always, always, always include the date. Having these dates in Rome and being able to search by date and see which one is the most recent is going to definitely save your life multiple times. So let's go back to our course here and we will see that that's actually, for the most part, it for this section. We just wanted to get outlining set up and ready. So in summary, the outlining framework is essential, and the sooner that you have something to start with, which is basically as easy as a collection of hashtags under the ideas tab so that you're ready as we move forward, the better. Second point in summary is don't panic. The outline will change frequently and it will grow as you implement the work that we discuss in this course. So, the course in action, what should you do? You should go ahead and set up the outlining framework in your own graph. You should go ahead and add in some topics and set up a page to hold your first outline version. Even if it stays empty for a long time, that's fine. Just have it there so that you're thinking about nomenclature and you're thinking about organization. What's next? What's next is an introduction to Smart Notes. So this isn't actually the whole entire Smart Notes system. This is just an introduction to what Smart Notes are so that before we get into the 4 sessions, you can feel confident that you understand what you're doing before you start doing anything. So we're going to talk about that next. It's the last element of the academic scaffolding before we start getting into process. So that's it for today. Onwards and upwards. See you next time.